Hello. It is so good to be back with my friends again on Friday. I love this time. I love making time for all of you. I am so sad that I have not been home to put these recordings up. So I will get on that as soon as I get back home, because we've got a few weeks now of meetings that are not available for moms to be watching them. So, but it is good to have those of you who can make it on Friday here with us. And remember, as always, if you can put your screen on, your camera on, please do it, because we love to get to see our faces and see this beautiful quilt of all of our friends. But if you cannot, we understand that. We have lots of time. We've got an hour to talk and discuss things that we want to, whatever's been on our heart, things from the past week, or things as you're projecting and looking forward to this summertime. Lindsay and I were talking this morning, and I think I'll just let Lindsay share a little bit about what she was thinking about that we could talk about today, because I thought it was a really good idea. Lindsay.
Yeah, so I've just been thinking a lot about how things look different in our homes and for ourselves and for our learning based on the season and how it looks different. So when Outsiders ended, I thought, oh, like I have time with my kids now. I sat down to plan yesterday and I planned out all these things I wanted to like do at home with them, and it quickly backfired. I was like, wait a minute, it's summertime. They're not going to want to do, like, I called them all to the table and was like, okay, guys, let's talk. I printed out like that sheet that Shannon had put up on Well Educated Heart. And I was like, okay, let's pick one. Let's do this bingo thing and it'll be fun. And they were like, Mom, can you just see if our friends want to swim or something? Like, I was so crushed. Like, oh, all my hopes and dreams are just gone. This isn't working. But I had to remind myself that like there's a time and a season for different types of learning. And right now it's summertime and we are supposed to be outside and we're supposed to just be together and be like building those relationships with each other and creating memories and going to cool places we don't get to go to, and we're, have commitments during the fall and the spring. And I don't know, it just like made me think, okay, what should the summer look like for us? Like, what is summertime in our family, and what are the things that we do in the summer that my kids that are important to us? Like, and then I listened to the podcast, Read Aloud Revival, and she just did an episode on setting our like homeschool compass. It could relate to anything, like setting our compass, not necessarily like a detailed roadmap, but like, where do we want to go with each season? What's the most important thing that we want to make sure at the end of that season to look back and go, I'm really glad we did this. So anyway, I'm just curious what your guys' summers look like. What's the most important thing that you want to get done in the summer for your family?
I love that question, and I love that it'll be different for everybody too.
Yeah.
Okay, we get to think about that. What does it look like for you? What do you feel like as a mama is important? What are some of your priorities, or the ones for your family? What are the things you kind of hope happen in the summertime? I love this idea of summertime is that time for you to connect with your family, because you don't have so many of the other commitments that can come with other seasons. And maybe some families have the reverse. Maybe summertime's crazy. I don't know. Ida?
So that is been on my mind and heart the last couple weeks, because like this month, every week there's something happening. Like one of my kids, or this week, 4 of my kids are at camp. And next week 1, and then next week 4 again. And then we're supposed to leave and go out of town for a month to go up to Utah. And I was like, oh, okay. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I feel like I was juggling all these balls and then all of a sudden they dropped, and now I'm like, okay, let's do this again. And I'm like, this isn't working. I can't juggle them the same way anymore. And so, and also it's spring, and so like we just got bees, and we have baby chickens that we're trying to make sure they're okay, and like a garden that we're trying to keep alive. And so there's all these other things that are taking a lot of time, right? Like outside things, more outside things. So I don't know. I'm kind of trying to figure out my bearings, right? And I was thinking when Lindsay was talking, like, you know, it is about connection, but also like I feel like adventure, like being outside and like or going places or doing things that you can't do. But also I feel like a really great time as a mom to also just be really feeding your heart a lot, you know, like now, like I can say, I mean, I should be able to say this all the time, but I don't care. Like, go outside and play, kids. Go play. I'm going to read, or I'm going to sit outside and watch you play, and I'm going to read my book, or I'm going to listen to something, or I'm going to paint or whatever, and you can come along or you don't. Or like even just like with the bees and the chickens and the garden, like I go out there and I looking at all the plants and trying to figure out what's going on with them, or like watching the chickens and seeing how the moms are taking care of the babies. And just it's so it's it's like very still and slow and quiet, and I'm just like I'm loving that. Like I'm loving just observing that and trying to figure things out, asking questions, you know. And so sometimes my kids are like coming to find me, Mom, what you doing? I'm watching the chickens. And then I'm like talking to him about the chickens, you know, look at this, look at that mom, look what she's doing or whatever. Anyways, I don't know. So that's kind of a tricky thing for me too. Like I trying to see like where, and this is our first really summer with all the kids now and the girls. And so I'm a little bit worried about that because I'm like, there's a lot more people and there's been a lot of pressure already just in the last couple weeks, like, Mom, can we watch a show? Mom, can we turn on the TV? Mom, can we watch a show? And I'm like, no, no. And sometimes I just want to be like, please just go and watch a show and stop pestering me, which is not the right attitude. But also I'm like, we don't need to stare at the TV for like 8 hours a day, really. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I need to have, I feel like some sort of routine, but definitely different than like during the school year. So I don't know if that was helpful. I'm just right there with, yeah.
Wow, that was great. I love that because these are all the things that are going on and that we're thinking about. Let me see. Lindsay says we watched 2 movies yesterday because it was getting rough, but I sat and watched with them, so I felt better about it. I think that's a great way to handle screen stuff. I mean, every family's got to do their own thing, but we made a practice of having just evenings together that we could watch a movie or sometimes an afternoon. And that was so nice because then I got to stop. And I felt like I have to. I can't just let them be in here watching. So we'll watch something together. And I would always bring a project or something, but I would say, don't do that. Because now that I sit and watch with my kids, I realize I've never seen a movie that I sat and watched with my kids all the way through. Like, I don't know all the scenes because I'm popping up to get this thing that I forgot, or to, make a snack, or to, I don't know, get another shirt to iron or whatever. And so there are scenes in these movies that we've watched lots of times together that I'm realizing I've seen for the first time because I didn't just plant myself with them, and let them just climb all over or whatever. So anyway, okay. So, Ida says, yeah, I've done that too. And being intentional about what we watch at the very least. And Lindsay said we did afternoon and evening. So a movie in the afternoon and a movie in the evening. That's awesome. Ida says we do afternoon or evening during the hottest part of the day when it isn't fun to be outside. Right. Lindsay and I can both be nodding our heads. Yes, we get that. We know what that's all about. But yeah, just planning some things to do with your kids, even if they're just like, okay, here's a few things that we could do together as a family that I don't have to plan. I think that's good too. But I love, Ida, what you were sharing about being outside and observing and having your kids come and catch you doing that, and then being able to share what you're observing with your kids. I'd love to encourage all of us to do that more, to just take some time to observe the things around us. I'm learning so much doing that up here. It's so different. And I've got some time that I don't normally have. And so I've learned things from observing, which I don't know that I've really done much in my life. Ida?
I was going to share too, that made me think about my son has been, he's like more observant, right? And my kids have just, I don't know, I guess they naturally came by that. I don't know where. But especially my boys are like always outside looking at stuff. And my oldest one was like, has found these mushrooms in our on our property. And so he was really curious about them and trying to figure out what they were. And I wanted him to show them to me and like asking questions. Mom, do we have, like he's looked in, like we have a few books that talk about them just in general, but mushrooms are hard to kind of identify and there's lots of lookalikes. Anyway, so he's been like on this trail of these mushrooms for the last week or so and has like, Mom, can you look this up? Can we find out? So like I joined some Facebook groups that are about identifying mushrooms. And like, it's just, and then we just ordered some mushroom books and he's like, I want to know all about these. And are they edible? Like, I need to know if they're edible. I'm like, well, they could be poisonous. So let's just wait until we're really sure. But it's been so fun. Like, just like he got interested in that. And because of it, like we've been all like asking questions and learning about it and trying to find out more. And it's not just me, like talking about it with my husband and like with the other kids, and they're like, and they, are kind of observing sometimes just from a distance, but it's like so fun to see that happening and just sometimes like taking advantage of those opportunities with your kids. Just roll with it. Like, I don't know what it is. Let's find out. Let's do some research and see what we can figure out. Anyway, so that's been one of our things that we've been our rabbit holes that we were working on this week.
But that is so cool. And that's a major win for your family. And what if you were so busy that you just kind of brushed him off and were like, yeah, go outside and play with the mushrooms, and you didn't take his interest seriously. Look what you would have missed out on. I mean, this thing that now you're saying has included the, others in your family, and you're adding to your family's library. You guys are going to be learning more about this. Pretty soon you guys will all be out foraging. And I just think that's super cool. I've been watching some YouTube videos about foraging, and I love that. There are families who make money off of foraging. They've bought land and they found things on their property or moved things that could grow naturally in those conditions, plus I just read The Harvester. So I'm all about, this whole 600 acres. He had 600 acres. How do you have 600 acres of land and that you can be responsible for? I am like, I can barely I have like 2/3 and I'm, anyway, I love it. I love it. So Ida, you say, I do the brushing off a little less, but I'm always grateful for when I don't. Yeah, right. And it's hard. It's hard because we're busy, but that's so awesome. I love that. So I learned, this is so dumb, and I think the picture is actually on the thing, but the toy that's a baby, well, I don't even know, does it still exist? But the Farmer's See and Say, where it used to be you pulled a string, but strings are dangerous. So now it's like a handle and you pull the handle and you turn the arrow to whatever animal and then you pull the handle and it makes the sound, right? So I'm pretty sure probably the bird that's on there, it probably shows a picture of a robin, but I've never really I just thought, but you put a picture of a bird, and it sounds like it's a bird sound. But now that I'm here where there are so many robins, like at home, I do have a robin in my yard, but they are far outnumbered by the mockingbirds and other things. But these robins are singing out here during the whole day. And I'm realizing, oh, that's a robin, that little sound on the Farmer's See and Say is a robin. And I've just never noticed that. But now I'm outside, you know, and I'm telling this sweet little boy, oh, the robin is singing a song for you. You know, can you hear the robin singing to you? And I love that now I'm starting to observe and make connections. And I love it. I love it for me, and how fun that you guys are at the point where you get to do this and include some other little people with you. I just think that's awesome. Jen, yeah.
Thank you all for sharing those experiences, because I've been feeling like even my body is telling me I need to slow down. Like with health issues and stuff, I'm trying to get the message from those. And this morning I was like, what is this trying to tell me? And it was like trying to slow me down. And I've always been angry at it because I'm like, it's slowing me down, it's keeping me back. But now I'm like, okay, maybe this is a good message. And then hearing these stories is confirming that, because I think that Heavenly Father has a lot more to show me and tell me if I would just not try to do so much on my own and not be so, you know, always looking for like, what can I do? What can I do better? What can I don't know, do more? And also a cool story that I had this summer already was after some of our classes ended, I decided that I wanted to have like a few days, like 4 or 5 days without having the computer on, because usually my 13-year-old wants to check her email every day. So I'm like, we're just gonna have a little break. And it was so cool to see what she's done, like, because she's wanted to write stories and stuff, and during her extra free time that probably would have been taken up, you know, doing good things on the computer, but she like sat down and drew out all her characters. She drew like these elaborate drawings and colored them, and now like her story is flowing so much more because she has the characters like pictured, and she's all excited about it. And I'm like, I don't know if she ever would have gotten to do that, like taking the time to do it, you know, if she had that computer access and like, I don't know, not had that boring time to have to figure out something to do.
I love that. That's a great win. That's awesome. Also, you noticing that slowing down maybe isn't such a bad thing after all, that it could be a gift.
Mhm.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. And Lindsay, you were nodding your head very emphatically. You always comment. Lindsay will say, she notices, she sits behind me in church. So she's always like, I can tell, you know, I see you nodding your head. Somebody's talking and saying something. Anyway, so you were nodding your head. I want to know what you were thinking when Jen was sharing that about this slowing down, kind of being forced to slow down. And maybe that's not such a bad thing after all.
I think I was nodding my head when she's like, when we slow down, then we allow room for Heavenly Father to like tell us what to do, rather than like, I need to do this, I want to do this. Because that's been what I've been doing lately. Like, okay, I want to make sure we cover all these things this summer. I want to do all these things. And then I remember, like, it's not, like, I don't really get to decide. And there's like a huge wake up call that lets me know that when like everything falls apart one morning and I'm like, that's right. This isn't like, I don't get to pick what we do. And when I pick what we do, things just don't work out that well. So we need to just slow down, like Jen was saying, slow down and kind of like just see what are we supposed to do and see what's happening in our house and kind of observe like your daughter doing things. I think where I'm struggling though right now is that, I don't know, I feel like we don't have things to do. Like, I don't know, like we don't have mushrooms on our property, and I don't know. So I'm feeling like we're all just kind of like lost and like bored at our house. Like, I know I'm supposed to be finding something that I'm doing so that the kids can find me doing stuff, but all I want to do right now is clean my house. So I'm like, that, I don't know. So we're just kind of like floundering, and I'm waiting for that instruction of like, we do have mushrooms on our property.
Oh,
Ruby's like,
job,
Mom,
Ruby.
He's like, Mom, we do.
Okay, so Ruby's a forager now. Good job, sweetie.
Around the tree. Yes. Yeah, and Max is working on survival tools. He wants to like make his own axes and like out of rocks and sticks. And so anyway, we've got these things that now I'm seeing, okay, this is where we're going, but it takes slowing down and observing the things that are happening in our house and observing the mushrooms growing around the tree that I didn't even know about.
I love it. I love that that was the example you brought up, and there are your kids right there to go, Mom, guess what? And I think that one of the keys is, oh, that's really cool. That's one of the tools Max built.
So here's what he's practicing with what we have. He found a piece of concrete, even though it'll be brittle, he thought he'll just make like a model he can't really use. And then he
I
made
love
like a
it.
wedge. So this is the first draft, but he's like, I need to get better. I need to make better stuff.
Well, that's what you do. Just that's all right. You keep improving. Good job, Max.
Yeah. And then he'll lay them all out and show the evolution of like how much better he got.
Nice. But I think one of the keys is to slow down for long enough to let something happen. And I think so often, and don't you find you do that within your life too, with Heavenly Father, as he's trying to teach you something, and and it's going and it's taking longer than you want. And so, so we jump in to try to make something happen, and it's just like, no, not yet. Just stay still, be patient, yes, yes. And if we can do it for long enough, we start to see, and then we see all of the beautiful things. But I think it like starts kind of opening up to us just a little bit at a time, if we can slow down. Satan's great thing, right, is making us busy, because there's a quote, right? Somebody probably knows. There's some really great quote by C.S. Lewis, I think, about good men, I don't know how you can take them down, you just make them busy or something. Okay, hold on, I gotta see. So I just said, that's funny. I would have said the same thing, Lindsay, until my son brought the mushrooms to my attention. Yeah, I love that. And then Melissa, we made shepherd slings. Oh, cool. Out of paracord. Oh, we're gonna have to learn that, Lindsay. And practice shooting marshmallows at a target sometimes. Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. So, I tell moms, I just came up this week. I don't remember who I was talking to, but that one of the things I tell moms when they're saying that things just aren't working at home, or maybe they're thinking about homeschooling, or they're just whatever their education is for their kids, or wherever they are in their lives, their life just isn't going the way they want it to, or something. They're having problems and stuff. So I'll say, if you can just take 6 months off, I mean, really a year, but nobody takes me up on that, because we just feel like, oh, I can't, I have to do life. Like, somehow that the world has said, this is what life is, or this is what my neighbors or my friends or my family or somebody else has said, this is what life looks like. And it fits in this box, right? And so we can't take a break from that too long, right? But I'll say, take at least 6 months off and just figure out who you are, and your spouse and your family, if there's anybody else with you. Just take that time and figure out what are the important things to do. I mean, definitely involve prayer and inspiration in that, and find out, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I so busy that I don't have time for? But maybe it's the most important thing. Anyway, there's just I think about that a lot. Anyway, Ida, you were going to share.
So I was just thinking about Elder Bednar. He talks about Revelation and how it's like the sunrise. And so sometimes, like, the sun rises and it's like a bright, you see the sunrise, you really notice it, right? And other times Revelation is like the sun rising on a cloudy day, or it's foggy and overcast, and so that there's light, but it's not the same kind of like, oh, And I was thinking about that, like, if we're so busy on a cloudy day, when that revelation is coming, we won't even notice it, right? We won't see it. So if we're slowing down, that gives us the opportunity to like pay attention to those small details, right? And it's or maybe it's like when you're in Idaho, right? Idaho,
Mhm.
wherever you are,
Idaho.
and you go to a new place and you hear different birds and you see different plants and you notice those things more. And maybe part of that is that you're kind of in this like slow down mode a little bit because you're in a different place. And so you and it's all new and different. So you recognize and see it more, right? So like just the idea of slowing down and taking the time helps you to take the time to notice things, or it helps you be more aware of things that are happening, right? That are you would just not even see if you were just going about your regular routine. So I was just
Yeah.
thinking about that, especially the revelation that comes like slowly, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
And very I mean, barely imperceptible, just a little bit. I mean, because there is light on those days, right? It's not
Yeah.
dark like it is at nighttime, but it's different. And if we're not watching or thinking about it, I think we can be very unaware of what's happening.
Just goes right over our head. Sometimes
Yeah.
I feel that happening. I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something. Ah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Jen.
So I tend to be really black and white. So with this conversation, I'm like, going back to a few years ago, I said to myself, I really want to follow the spirit and do whatever God wants me to do. So I'm just not going to make any goals or plans this year. I'm just going to wait and see what he tells me. And I got nothing for a few months, like nothing. I'm like, okay, so I do need to do my part, like the planning and the taking action and being anxiously engaged. But maybe I didn't understand anxiously engaged because now I went to the other side of like, okay, I need to figure out what to do. And I hope that, I'm asking along the way for inspiration, but I think there's just way too much in my head for it to get there.
Yeah.
So
That
I'm
makes
just wondering
sense.
about the balance. Like what's the good balance between those?
Yeah, I'm going to invite Lindsay to share on that because we took the emotional resilience course that you can take, the self-reliance course that's offered from, by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is so good. It's so good. And you don't have to like officially take it. You could just go online, get the manual and read through it. But in that, there was a video, and the video showed this woman, and it kind of just, she walked you through her day, how she plans her day and how she does a combination of that, Jen. And I think that I love that. And I know Lindsay shared it before, but hopefully you don't mind, Lindsay, sharing that again.
Yeah, it's like what you're saying. And she would just get up in the morning, or you could do it the night before, but I think she did it in the morning, this woman, and she would create her to-do list, kind of the things that she felt she needed to get done that day. And then she would pray that the Spirit
Did we freeze?
would pray that the Spirit would kind of guide her day. She went about these things. And sometimes it says my internet connection's unstable. Can you hear me? Okay. Sometimes she wouldn't get to any of those things because the Spirit would tell her to go help somebody else. And I think, she would pray and then write the list, so that it was kind of the Spirit was guiding her through the list. But she just would, create a plan and then follow the Spirit. And sometimes the Spirit would take her through her to-do list, and sometimes it wouldn't, but she would know that she did her part and then she followed the Spirit. And so whatever needed to get done that day got done. And she felt good at the end of the day that she did the most important things. So it's good. And it reminds me that I've talked about before, the blank page brainstorming that I learned through TJ Ed. And that, you just sit down once a week and kind of write down for each person in your family the things that you can help them with. Because as mom, that's kind of, we're just here to like help everybody else as we help ourselves. And just, I do those things sometimes, but then I forget to pray, to like about it first, or maybe I forget to pray. I don't know, like somewhere along the line, sometimes I'll do the blank page brainstorming and then it gets fuzzy and I forget what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think we need to just always be consciously trying to do what the Spirit's telling us to do. And if we don't feel anything, then just go back to our list, and maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Just go to the list and do those things. Yeah, so it's like Jen said, it's a little bit of both. We got to balance both. We need to put some effort in and think about the things that are important, and then follow the Spirit.
Yeah. I like that. We really need to be led, but also be doing our own part. And I love what Ida shared on there. Ida, you want to share that and comment on your what you put in the chat? I like that.
Sure. I've just always heard, it's easier for God to steer a car that isn't parked, right? So if you think about, if you're driving, it's a lot easier just for you to steer, right? But if you're just sitting there, like you're not going anywhere, and it's actually kind of hard to steer the car, right? To turn the wheels. And I think about two examples in the scriptures, like Enoch that we studied here not too long ago, and he was going about his day, walking through the field or whatever to do what he needed to do, and then the Lord's like, hey, I got this job for you, you're moving, so let's just go this way, maybe. And I think that's so true. Like, we're just anxious, we should be anxiously engaged in trying to do things that we think are good, or trying to, and then we just constantly checking in. And yeah, it's hard. Like, it's this contrary, as Jared Halliburton likes to say, between being rigidly stuck in a plan and like letting the Spirit guide you, right? Like, there's a balancing, and it's always a fine, always kind of back and forth, at least for me, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, I'm driving. No, I'm stopping. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the idea of the just adding to what you said, but just the airplane, and the course correction, right? Just that you're going, but you just have these little, if you're willing to and open to that idea of this course correction, just to keep you pointed to where he wants you to be going, I guess. I don't know. Jen, were you going to say something, sweetie?
Yeah, I think sometimes I just want an excuse, like not to have to make the decision. So I'm like, well, I want him to tell me what to do, because then I know it will be right and I won't have to guess and risk, being wrong or not doing it the best way. So sometimes I hope that he will tell me what to do without me putting in the effort, or I go to the extreme of the other side and just I get so overwhelmed and I just can't decide because there's so many good things. You can never get to them all. And I'm disappointed because of what I didn't get to and things like that. So
yeah, it's hard. We can get ourselves all twisted up just in our thinking and feeling about things. Sometimes I think it's just, just pick a thing and start. And if it's wrong, he'll say, back up. That wasn't the right one. Go pick up the other one, and that's okay.
Yeah. So just like scale back and do my best to pick a few things that might be doable, and then just be open, just try to be in tune as I'm going about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to be able to relax and enjoy this time and not be so hung up about the list, or the number of things or the ideals. I spent some time doing that, and I look back and think, oh man, I didn't have to do that. Once I learned not to, it was so nice because I could then just enjoy my family. I could just enjoy some time. And it was awesome. It made a big difference. Melissa.
I think sometimes when my lists get too big or I'm putting too much on myself, I need to do all the things and it's more than anyone really could do. I think back to the time I spent in the Philippines, and I would spend 3 hours a week doing my own laundry. Imagine if I had to do laundry for my family by hand right now. That's 15 plus hours a week doing laundry that I would spend. And my family's a lot smaller than a lot of yours. And without electricity, we had to go to the market every single day because we didn't have a refrigerator that would keep food good. And it was too hot and humid that it would go bad. So we'd have to walk an hour to the market every morning, get our food, which would take about an hour to find what we needed to, because you had to go to each vendor to get each ingredient, and then an hour home. It took an hour to prep the food. and sometimes we would walk 5 hours a day without seeing another person, just because of how remote we were. And that's how people lived back in the day. I mean, that's how people are living there now, but that's how people where we are, pioneers lived and whatnot. And we would spend time feeding and clothing your family and just doing stuff. We couldn't listen to music. We didn't have any music to listen to while we'd wash our laundry for 3 hours, or while we were walking for hours and hours a day. And you do just have time to talk or think or sit or watch, because you're not like, oh crap, I've got to get a 30-minute run in and I'm going to listen to this podcast or song while I'm doing it. And I'm going to listen to an audiobook while I'm folding laundry and cooking dinner and doing all the things, because you can't do them in that situation. And you do just really have to focus on the basics. It goes really, really far back to basics. And obviously our life is different than that, but it really just brings the basics back into like focus.
Yeah, I love that. And I like to think that perhaps some of summer anyway could be a little bit of that. You could maybe decide, at least for yourself, to cut back big time on the expectations and let your life be slower and see what it's like. See if maybe you could bring a little bit of that into your fall and your winter and your spring. If maybe that wouldn't be a good way to approach life. Yeah, Ida.
Just this morning I was walking, and I haven't gone walking for like a week or so. And I was like, I need to get back at walking in the morning, because that actually helps me feel better too, physically. I was like, I'm so sore. I don't feel like this when I walk. It's so crazy. Anyways, so I was walking this morning and I was listening to a podcast, and I often do. But I sometimes I've noticed that when I do that, like I'm so checked out, and I'm also just super like in this box of whatever I'm listening to. So I was about halfway through the walk and this podcast was done. And I was like, maybe I should turn on something else. And instead I just took out my earbuds and stuck them in my pocket. And I was like, I don't know what to listen to, so I'm just going to walk. And so then like the rest of the walk, I was just walking and listening. And I was like, passed some people and said hi to them, and just a brief, like, how are you comment kind of, and noticed the noises, like the birds, and I paid more attention to the plants. And then I was still thinking about stuff. It wasn't like I was just like, zoning out either. And I was pondering some of the things that I listened to before. And it made me make other connections, because I was kind of like just puzzling it around in my head and like turning it over and thinking about it. And it was just interesting to me, like, because I took that time to just stop listening to something and just think, it helped me to get inspiration and have these thoughts that I might not have had if I was just focused in on this and just listening to what they were saying or whatever. And maybe like personal application, or like in this particular situation, or seeing Christ in this story a little bit in another way, And so I thought, like, just the power of that, just being still in you. I don't know. It's so good and so hard to remember. At least for me. I'm always like, go. Anyways, so the slowing down thing again.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm typing this because I didn't want to forget this, but that story where it talks about that analogy about jamming the radio to keep communication from happening. And that's what we sometimes do to ourselves by always being plugged in, by always having stuff going on. So that we don't allow ourselves that quiet time, those moments of reflection. I have a sister-in-law who goes for a morning walk, even if it's 5 minutes, if that's all she can find. She goes out the door for her inspiration walk. That's what she calls it. And I think just calling it that makes it a thing that you feel like, well, that needs to happen today. I need to make sure to make time for that. And then it is completely unplugged and alone. You know, other walks, she'll go and take a child or more with her, you know, they've got like 8 kids, I think. And, but this is by herself and it's her inspiration walk. And she just walks and talks and listens to heaven and goes home and records, you know, the highlights of that walk, those thoughts. And I think that is such a good practice. So it has helped me to go outside unplugged most of the time. I don't think it's a bad, I mean, I often will listen to podcasts and stuff like that, but to take some of the time, at least like you did, Ida, I love that. And have that exact kind of an experience, to have the time to ponder and think. And like you said, that is another version of this slowing down. Could we make like a pact? Could we be a club? And we'll say, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to make a pact and we're all going to slow down over the next couple of months. I mean, there's stuff scheduled on our calendars. There's some things that are going to have to happen, but maybe in between times, maybe for all, you know, as much of the rest of the time that we can, could we do that? You know, what would we learn? What would we experience? What would we find? Yeah, I love the idea of inspiration walks too. Yeah, Melissa.
Our last summer was for us really busy. We were out of town for over 5 weeks of the summer, and we had guests for 3 weeks of the summer, and we had colds for 3 weeks of summer. And so summer ended and I was like, what just happened? Like my kids almost didn't even have a single play date that summer, like with our local friends. And this summer, I think we have 2 things planned. And I was like, no, we're just not, I don't know what we're doing, but we're not doing that. And so everyone's like, what are we doing for summer? I'm like, I don't know. Probably playing in the backyard a lot. But we're not doing last summer. We're not being busy every single week.
I love it. I love it. And I'm really anxious to hear as the summer goes along, Melissa, how that's going, you know, what you've experienced. And I love Ida's comment over here. I think the biggest challenge for me is helping my kids see the power in slowing down too, and not feel like they need to be constantly doing something or staring at something. And again, I think that's just give them enough time, you know, that concept of your kids, we're not bored anymore. We need to be bored. There's an incredible, amazing, wonderful benefit to being bored. You come up with things to do. What would you say to that, Melissa?
I haven't figured that out in my own family. I have kids that are really quick and move on every 5 minutes. And so if I don't make sure they're engaged in something, my house ends up being destroyed. I have one kid that once tried to unscrew every screw he could find in our house, including the doors. And yeah, so I haven't quite found that balance. But this week we struggle with, we make a big mess, we don't clean it up. We might have had fun in the process, but then it's a big grumpy mess because no, they won't clean. And I'm trying to teach my youngest right now that he needs to clean up. That's the stage we're in. And so it's been really frustrating. And so this week I said, I'm not doing any book work, because I do book work with them. I said, we're not doing any book work if I can walk into any room at any time and it's clean, unless you're playing with it. And this week has been spectacular.
Some major motivation.
They played Barbies, they played Legos, they played trains, they played blocks, they built forts. We spent a lot of time outside. We've gone on walks. And just because there's not this huge mess that always has to be cleaned up, we can do all those things, because I'm not constantly saying we have to clean up this massive mess. You dumped out every toy box we own, kind of thing. So I don't know how long that'll work or how it'll transition, but for this week, it's been really nice having a clean home where the kids are just playing,
Right.
and everyone's not grumpy.
Well, and I think that inspires more creative play too. I think, you know, none of us feel happy when we've got a mess around us and we know that we feel like, oh, I need to take care of that, right? So that probably helps. I think that's a good point. But honestly, I think letting them be bored for long enough but like with supervision, especially if you have one that knows where the screwdriver is. Lindsay, I think that's interesting that David gave you an article about the importance of being bored. I think that's awesome. Thanks, Melissa. I'm curious to know what that is. And because I've read multiple things on it, and I think it's so important. That's one of the things that comes out with from Jenny with 1,000 Hours Outside. Get them, just let them be outside, and don't give them a project or anything to do. Just let them figure out what to do, and they will. Yeah, Lindsay, go ahead, sweetie.
I was just going to say the name of the study was Too Many Structured Activities May Hinder Children's Executive Functioning. So it's just interesting that if we structure too much of their time, then they don't know how to make decisions. They can't figure out how to, being bored helps them learn how to make decisions in their life.
Yeah, what do you say? Too many structured activities may hinder
children's executive functioning. It was edweek.org. I don't even think I finished reading the article.
They read some of it. Oh, Ida. That's interesting.
Yeah, I read part of it. And
particularly when they're little,
Mhm.
to have so many activities, like when they're, I think it was the age range they gave in the article, but
He's like
I'm
6
sure,
years old. Yeah.
That's ongoing, right? Especially if you, hopefully, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's like, you send a child outside to play, and at first they really will, if they're not used to it, they really will just stand around and not even know what to do. But if you give them enough time, they'll figure it out. And I love it. I love having kids be unplugged and getting outside. Oh, Abby shared. Abby says, yes, I love this. I unplugged the TV and hid the remotes and DVD player. I love it. Remove temptations. My husband put a passcode on my phone so I won't be on it. I asked him to. Oh, Abby, you are so wise.
That's so smart.
Young and so wise. I love it. Well, I've decided when I go back home, Well-Educated Heart, Mothers of Influence, all this stuff will happen only on my computer, not on my phone. Because it's just, I've gotten too used to having my phone in my hand all the time, to the point that I have this elbow injury. It's really sore, and it's just from my phone, I'm pretty sure, because it's just that. Anyway, it's ridiculous. So I've got to limit myself too. So of course, if we have to put limits for ourselves, then absolutely it is appropriate to make them for our family, whatever it is, whatever works for your family. But anyway, I love it, Abby. That's awesome. Yeah, Lindsay.
I was just gonna say, I have one kid that he's on the computer all day. Yesterday, I grounded him from the computer for a little bit because I was like, okay, you need to do something else. But he's on there watching baseball games all day, and he's studying the players, and he knows every umpire, and he's like, this is what he wants to do all the time. And so I feel like, oh, bye, Ida. I don't know. So it's hard because we talk about letting them kind of follow their passions and what they're interested in, but his involves being on the computer all day. So I'm torn all the time. I've got to kick him off at some point, but I feel like he's doing good on the computer. He's just watching baseball, but
yeah, well,
it becomes an obsession.
A lot of that is just being prayerful, right? To find out, okay, because Michael did the same thing for a while. He was on the computer so much, but he was learning. He was taking all of these different classes and stuff, and he learned so much. It was incredible. But I said, pray about it. Pray about your schedule. And I'm pretty sure that Heavenly Father will put in there for you breaks, and then get outside, go outside in between and do other things, but I let him pray about it, and he kind of came up with a schedule. I had him come and review it with me, and that helped. I'm not saying that way is the way. I'm just saying I think that we can find maybe some boundaries, by being prayerful about it. Because you're right, those are good things that he's doing, but you also, none of us want them sitting at the computer all day long. Oh, yeah. So you gave that counsel to one of the kids yesterday? Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because my oldest, she's always like, okay, what are we doing tomorrow? Like she has to know what is the plan for tomorrow. So I said, well, I have
That's
my
like Jen.
mother's, yeah, I have my Mothers of Influence call in the morning, and then we don't really have anything all day until the evening. So pray about it and see what it is that you're supposed to do tomorrow. And I'm here if you need me to help you. And so that's what I told her last night. So I need to do the same for the other child. Like, hey, pray about what you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, Melissa?
I read an article once about the military boot camp, and they were talking about how they had to change the regulations for hand grenade throwing at boot camp because nobody could pass the regulations anymore on how far you had to be able to throw a hand grenade that had been in place for like since World War II, I think, on how far you had to be able to throw a hand grenade because nobody could throw that far anymore. And they had just attributed it to the fact that kids weren't out playing with their friends anymore, because that's how kids back, throughout history have go throw a ball with their friends for hours and play in the street and whatnot. And they're like, well, we aren't doing that anymore. We are regulating them playing baseball. So kids still play baseball, but they're not doing it for fun. They're not doing it all the time, catching up socially. And so they had to, I don't know if they had to get rid of the regulation or shorten the regulation on how far they had to throw hand grenades. And I was like, if I were in the military, I don't think I'd want that regulation shortened per se.
Yeah. I don't need that thing hitting the ground closer to me. Yeah.
But I just thought it was really interesting that even for these really physically involved people, they were like, yeah, they can't throw a hand grenade anymore the way they used to. They literally just couldn't do it.
Wow, that's really interesting. Wow, really interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of really good supportive information. If any of you are kind of thinking, how am I going to do this summer? And how am I going to keep my kids away from the screen and, as much as I want to? And what if they're bored outside and all of that? Go to 1000 Hours Outside and read some of her material. You can just on Instagram or their webpage and read some of the helpful things that she includes about the importance of getting outside. And there are a lot of good ideas out there too, but sometimes just knowing the why, understanding a little bit more about it can help us be more motivated, to make that happen. But our kids will end up being happy out there. But I think the more time they spend on screens, the harder it's going to be for them to be happy finding their own things to do. At least that's been my experience. I mean, it's my experience for myself too. Once I get outside, I'm so happy I'm there. But if I'm inside and I can just be on my screen, it's so much easier, so why wouldn't it be the same for them? Anyway, I love, Lindsay just said, I feel like we see that in the lack of church sports we have now compared to years ago. It's just not as common, right, to just get out and play. She was saying that studies were done with depression meds versus sunlight, and the sunlight worked better in many cases. Yeah, Melanie's nodding her head. Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting how the things that we used to do, life, a slower pace, working harder, probably working outside. Well, there's also a thing that talks about having your hands in the soil. Like there's something about soil that's actually a positive and helps our bodies. And I don't remember, because I don't remember the details of stuff, but I ran across a study about it. And I thought that's really interesting, because I used to think, gosh, how are these people that had such demanding lives so much happier? I mean, a lot of them, not all of them, some of them have pretty miserable lives, but a lot of them were happier overall, didn't have all of these issues that we have, but their lives were more, they had a lot more time outside and probably a slower lifestyle. And I romanticize that. I'm sure that's kind of part of who I am, but I do think there's a lot of value to figuring out how can we slow down a little bit this summer and be a little more intentional about the things that we're doing, not just rushing through our list of things we think might need to happen. So Lindsay also added, And Lindsay, you can pop in and say any of this stuff. Why don't you read that last one, sweetie?
Yeah, not only were they outside, but they had plenty of stuff to do to keep them busy, where we don't. We have to figure out how to use our time. What are we going to do with our time? Which is a blessing and a curse. Like Marlene talks about this a lot. Like we live in this wonderful time where we have a lot of time. We don't have to wash every dish. We could put them in the dishwasher. And then we have access to so much beautiful music and art and all of these things to fill our time. But it's hard because we have to figure out, okay, which things do we do? So that's kind of, I feel like that's hard. That's a hard thing, not knowing exactly what to do with our time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I do think that's why creating opportunities where we have work to do together as a family is actually a really good thing. That's harder to do if you're like in an apartment or something like that. But if you've got any little bit of space to be able to have some work to do together is a blessing. Yeah, Jen.
We also have like a whole nother realm of work to try to keep up with though, like the virtual world, like emails and things have been a big stress for me lately because I know there are important things in there that I need to get to, but I keep putting it off. And then when I check my email, I get distracted by everything else in there. So they never had any of that stuff back then either. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, right. Right. They didn't have any of that. And I, sometimes I used to think I am so busy. All these texts are coming in, all these emails, all these things. And then my husband suggested, he asked, how many of that do you generate? And I thought, oh, that's a really good question. So then I stopped initiating for a week. What do you know? Like there was hardly anything. And while maybe what I initiated was good stuff, it was making me feel like, I'm so busy. All this stuff is going on in my life. And how do I keep up on this? I started it. I'm the one that started it. So anyway, that was kind of eye-opening and kind of like, oh, ouch. Okay, I'm looking up getting that reference. I don't know, because I'm staying on here on camera, right? So to find that, to give you the actual link, but I'll give you the author and where I found it. I just love it. It's such a good article. It's long, but it is well worth the read. Okay, so you guys talk.
When I try to find it, I think I usually just Google like BYU family work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it counts because the BYU article, isn't it?
Yes.
Sent it to me a few times, but every time I want to find it, I just
right.
Google something like that.
Hold on.
That's a good one.
ADU. So that is the page that it's at, that it came up. Family work and housework, the chores that bind us together as a family. Do you want that? Then get busy working with your family. It makes a huge difference. We bought the house we bought because it had some property and there was a lot of work to do. And Lindsay can attest to the fact that there's a lot of work to do on our property. There's just been a ton over the years. Just the yard work alone was whoever's job it was that year. It's about 4 hours every Saturday. And they would be totally in charge of it. They'd learn how to do all the parts of it. And then they would dad would come out and check it and make sure that they did a good job. Somebody else had the pool and they were responsible for everything, chemicals, cleaning it, sweeping it, all the stuff, or out in the outback or whatever. Anyway, and we had tons of AstroTurf around our house. Most of it has come up these days, but somebody had the job of vacuuming AstroTurf every Saturday. But anyway, in the very beginning, when we first moved into our house, because it had been gross for a really long time, it had some kind of squatters living in it, some drug addicts living in it, just right in the middle of a nice neighborhood, but it just gotten yucky. And there was such debris, yard debris. We had 65 of those giant construction garbage bags filled with debris, plus a really long trailer stacked with the stuff that, you know, there's no way we were cutting it down to fit into garbage bags, hauled off the property. In addition to a dumpster of just the stuff that was in the garage, just junk, and all around the yard. We found children backpacks, a bathroom rug out in the bushes, like under leaf piles and stuff on the side of the house. We didn't even know when we first saw the house that there was a playhouse over on the side because there was so much debris. So it was crazy. And we had cockroaches there in the yard, not in the house, but in the yard. We sprayed regularly so that we wouldn't have them, because we don't, our family kind of has this motto, you know, a good cockroach is a dead cockroach, right? So you only want dead cockroaches. Just seeing a live one was like, we're moving, you know. So so one of my kids, the littlest one, had the job, and it was cockroach patrol. And every morning he had to go out with this old Costco milk box we had cut down and a little broken broom. So it's just the bottom part of the broom. And he would have to go find all the cockroaches and sweep them up into this box and count them all and come tell dad how many he found. And anyway, now we don't have any. We don't even find the dead ones because we have geckos. Geckos are the best thing in the world. I'm just telling you. But anyway, that was his little job that he had to do. Like, everybody had a job, and it was important to the happiness and well-being of all the family members that cockroach patrol happened. Anyway, isn't that gross? But anyway, yeah, so that family work article I would highly recommend. So anyway, we have been an hour, so it's time to wrap up. Yeah, they eat them. They eat bugs, spiders. I mean, it's just, we don't have bugs. Like, you don't see like the bugs around the lights and stuff. Those geckos are, and they're cute. You know, they have little pad, you know, on their feet, and I don't know, they're just cute. So we encourage them. They are our friends. I'm sad we don't have Linnell right now, but I'm so happy for her. She and her family are having all kinds of adventures, but we don't have her for the wrap up. Anybody want to volunteer for a wrap up? I'm sure Linnell is not the only one who has that gift and talent. So if anyone wants to, I invite you to do that. Jen, do you want to?
I will try again.
Awesome.
So today we talked about how important it is to slow down and pay attention to our surroundings and learn from what's around us and learn more about what's around us. And that by doing so, we can give God the opportunity to inspire us. We talked about the importance of helping our children do the same and allowing them to have more time and to be bored so that those creative juices can flow. And we talked about finding a balance between planning and trying to do good things versus waiting for inspiration and help. As we plan and go about our days, we need to stay in tune and be aware of those thoughts and feelings that come to guide us.
I love it. That was great. Thank you so much, Jen. And that was a lot. And those were good things that we were able to talk with each other about today. I love it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for all of you, what you added to the conversation today. And Jen, did you want to share something else, sweetie?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. Okay. So thank you all of you for being here. This was wonderful. It's always such a good thing. It really, really adds to my day and helps me feel really positive about the week as it's coming up. So I hope it does the same for you. So we will see each other again next Friday, and I should be at home. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, have a wonderful weekend and a really good week, and good luck slowing down. Good luck with slowing down. Let's see how we do. We'll check in next week. Thanks for coming, everybody.